It is a considerable surprise to both me and to people who know me that I spend most of my Sunday mornings as a football coach. I'm not great at football and I don't look particularly sporty. And yet for the last 5 years, I had the privilege, because that's ultimately what it is, of being a coach for pan disability, primarily youth football. So this video is for those who have been in my position where you've sort of inherited the job, or who coach kids football but kind of think a million miles out of their depth, who work with pan disability football. I am no expert. I've just lived this for 5 or 6 years, and there are 10 things that I would pass on that I sort of wish I knew when I got going. Number one, this is such a... before I get into the 10 things, there's an obvious foundation here of you've got to have all your checks, you've got to treat people right, all of those bases. So I'm assuming a lot of that is implicit. I know it's not necessarily so, but for the purposes of this video, I'm just doing 10 things that I've learned, 10 things I wished I'd known, just things I've kind of picked up. The first of which is the absolute importance: rain, shine, snow. If you happen to work at a club that's on like some completely different weather system, you've got to turn up. Number one, you've absolutely got to turn up. If you are a kids pan disability football coach, kids might be looking forward to that all week. You don't know what's gone on the rest of the week. They might have had a lovely time. They might not have had a lovely time. If you say you are going to put a session on at like, I don't know, 9:30 on a Sunday morning, you be there and ready at 9:30 on a Sunday morning. There are moments, of course, when you're ill, when you're on holiday and stuff like that. You give as much notice of that as possible. One of the things I learned during one of my many crises of confidence doing this is, on my worst days, I turned up. And on my worst days, I could stand there with a whistle, just cobble together a game of football and just get the kids moving and get them enjoying some football. You can't do that if you don't turn up. If you don't turn up, the whole thing's often off. You get all the guilts and stuff like that. It's bad enough when you're ill and stuff like that. Your job, number one, is to turn up. And if you can't do it, it's fairer all round with no slight at all, because it ain't easy if you step away. You got to turn up. Number two is, I mean, to a degree, it's the line of terror, in that there's inherently a lot of responsibility that comes with being a pan disability football coach, particularly when you're dealing with youth pan disability football. I am frequently terrified by it, but I am also, what I learned fairly quickly, first as a parent, having children go through a team, and then as a coach, it's probably, as a rule of thumb, 2 or 3 times more terrifying for parents and carers than it is for the kids. And so what I tend to do, it's not foolproof, but it's worked more often than not, is when we get someone new coming along, I have a football ready. The first thing, as soon as they turn up, keep the conversation to a minimum, find out who they support, let them take the rise out of my team, Birmingham City, people do. Give them a football, get them playing football, stop them thinking. Just get them doing what they're there to do as fast as humanly possible. I then use that time, and sometimes other coaches take them on, sometimes they have a kick around with other players while I'm watching, to talk to the parents stroke carers. If you are a parent or carer of someone with a child with any kind of additional need, I'm doing this very broadly under the umbrella of pan disability, seeing your kid go and play football when you're not necessarily always expecting that to go right can be terrifying. I spend the first couple of minutes, once the player is playing and kicking, even if they're just taking penalties or something, just something, get them footballing, talking to parents and carers. I find out the questions. I want to know what the worst day looks like. I want to know what to do when things go really, really badly wrong. And I can't and won't discuss individual cases and individual players, as you know, we've had a couple of hundred in my time go through now. the youngest has been, 5 or 6. The eldest has been 50 typing error, to use the old Barry Cry joke. And so there's a whole cauldron, a mix of things, but unified by the fact there's a whole bunch of people who just want to play football. I take the time on that first week. Here is what we are. And I introduce at this point one of my absolute key rules. And it is the rule of sorry. So we get players who haven't fitted in at other clubs, or we've had players where parents have just struggled for a year or two just to find a safe space for their kid to play football. And if you are a parent of a child with any kind of additional need, certainly in the pan disability spectrum, there is this word sorry that keeps coming along with it. Oh, I'm sorry. When your kid's like kicking off or something like that, oh, I'm sorry, or I just need to do that. I'm sorry. It's just like, no. When players come to us, one of the first things I try and impress on people is, let's get rid of this word sorry. All right, sorry if you come and kick me in the shins or slag off my football team or, deliberately do something right. I don't know. There are instances, but you don't apologise for who you are. You don't apologise for what's brought you to the field. You just don't. If you are a parent of a child with some degree of pan disability, and there are lots of you out there, you'll know, you just seem to automatically say sorry for stuff that you don't have to say sorry for. There's a film out in cinemas at the time this is recording, and hopefully this video will stay up for ages and you'll be able to see donkeys. So dig out the film, called I Swear. And fairly early on in that film, one of the characters tells off the lead character, who has Tourette's syndrome, for saying sorry. And I just implore you to watch it. Save your apologies for things that actually you can influence, that matter, that deserve, but apologising for who you are, apologising because life has thrown you a slightly different set of dice, a different set of cards to play with. Yeah, not with us. Number 3 is difficult, because once you're stood in the middle of, I was never going to be a PE teacher. I was never great at football. I was always picked last for PE. Still would be today, to be fair. But once you're stood in the middle of the field and you're surrounded by kids, there are the parents and carers watching you, expecting you to know what you're doing. It can be terrifying. It could, there are moments in my life where I've had abject fear. The first week or two of doing it, terrifying. I wanted to put this video out because I used to go along with my team to watch league. We played league games and friendlies against other teams. All the other coaches seemed to know exactly what they were doing. They had these brilliant drills. Their teams were just just looked like they respected the coach and all of that thing, right? No, it's not how it works. We're projecting. Loads of it is projection. That doesn't mean we don't know stuff. It doesn't mean we're not good at stuff. We're all really good at punching ourselves down. Doesn't mean we're not good at certain things. But it's really important when you're in the middle of the park that you just project that you know what you're doing. And my fellow coaches who I work with will know that there are times where I have just been absolutely winging it, but the kids wouldn't, and to a lesser degree, really, the parents and carers perhaps wouldn't see that I'm adjusting what I'm doing on the fly. I'm going with that person's kicking off there. I've got a fight going on there. I've got that there. They're not doing what I asked. It's fine. I'm just adjusting it on the fly. Projecting that you know what you're doing just for the benefit of the kids is fine. Even in this video, I may, it's up to you to judge, I may be coming across as some kind of authority on this. No, I'm just someone who's lived it, who's just gone through it, has made a ton of mistakes, just moved on, just completely moved on. Number 4 is just the perception of pan disability football. Sometimes it's just like, oh, isn't that sweet? Isn't that lovely? Oh, it's great. It's just like all that crap that I'm not great with. It's just worth knowing the reality of it. There was one of the early games that, one of the early league matches that I was overseeing was an adult pan disability game. And adult pan disability football can be can be brilliant. Halfway through, we were watching the game of the team we were about to play. Halfway through, the manager of that team walked slap bang onto the middle of the pitch and lamped the captain of the opposition player, leading to 2 red cards. It's football. Just take the label off it for a minute. It's football. If you're expecting everyone to get on, if you're expecting there not to be red cards, yellow cards, trouble, mayhem, and stuff like that, here's your reality check. It's football. A pan-disability football can be just as taxing, aggressive, competitive, inverted commas, as mainstream football. It's just like, it is football at the heart of it all. Number 5 is the FA. So once you're set up as part of a football club, and I'm really lucky that I'm part of a bigger club where a lot of people do a lot to lift a lot of this work off us. I can't praise them enough. Grassroots football requires a time commitment to the FA, and I kind of have a love-hate relationship with the FA on this. On the one hand, the people who work with us from the FA on the pan-disability side in the West Midlands are brilliant. I suspect they're watching this, but they know I say it to their face as well. They might be paid for doing it. They might, but even so, some of them may be volunteers. The work that goes into just putting on one day of pan-disability football is terrifying. And the fact that people are doing it is incredible. I get to turn up with my teams, and I have had to hit an admin burden. I've had to deal with an admin burden to be able to do that. My yin and yang of the FA, on the one hand, the people we work with are brilliant. On the other hand, the FA expects you to register every player on the system. I understand all this. I have no problem with that. You want to do it formally. And also, it's great telling a youngster, we're officially signing you to our club on the FA system. And it tends to go down very, very well. On the flip side, what the FA expects of you as a volunteer is unfair. At the top end of the game of football, we see transfer fees of 125 million pounds for one footballer, right? And over every transfer window, the Premier League alone, the FA Premier League, the transfer fees are the total transfer goes into billions. The money in football I'm not the first to complain, but come on, distribution of it is ridiculously unfair. I would strongly advocate for a levy on transfer fees at Premier League level, 5-10%, something like that. That money, never mind the football pyramid like the EFL, and I support an EFL club, get it into the grassroots game, put in support, administrative support, paid help if necessary. I don't know the perfect way to do this for the thousands of people who are doing the grassroots administration work and the running round. And that side of it, I confess, I find really difficult, because if you don't register a player properly on the FA system, you then have to do a lot of chasing around, and parents and carers are doing chasing around, and we're all doing it for free. You have to pay, you have to pay for the insurance, for the affiliation. And again, I'm lucky to be annexed to a team where there's brilliant volunteers who do so much of this work. But the burden of expectation from the FA, even if you're just turning up for an hour or two a week to coach some players, I find very, very difficult to deal with. Number 6 is about the training sessions that you put on. So when I started this, I went along to an FA course, and there was a brilliant coach there, and it wasn't pan-disability specific, and so a mix of like mainstream youth football, pan-disability football in there. And there was this brilliant qualified FA coach, and he was coming up with all these sessions, and he explained this great session to start to start just a training session off. And it's just like, right, so we'll set all this up, set it up with the first player there, and then when a second player arrives, give the responsibility to the first player to explain it to the second player. Straight away, this is falling apart in my head. And then they've got to do this activity, this activity, this activity, and it's fun. And we watched as this perfect session played off, and I'm watching it, and I'm just like, no, not a chance that is going to work. It comes down to, you watch all these other coaches and think they've got it right. We're all just trying to like cling on to some degree. I was presented with a bunch of sessions to try with the players that I was working with, and it became very clear, for no fault of the players, no fault of mine, very early on, there was not a chance in hell that was going to work. Just nothing. Everything this guy showed me on this day fell apart when it was faced with the brutal wall of reality that I'm going to look at 20 kids and say, right, this is what we're going, this is it, and then we do that and you do that. Didn't work. What I learned very quickly is you adapt it. You take the bits you need, and that is perfectly fine. You can search online and see all these perfect training sessions, all these perfect apps, all these ideas. Barely any of them work for me. I find myself reading them and plucking out that bit might work. I can do something with that bit. I could do something with that. Even then, half of the sessions I come up with go wrong. I came up with one idea of using balloons instead of footballs for one session. The problem is the place where we train, our club, is just on a completely different weather system to the rest of the world. So even in high summer, massive gust of wind, all my balloons were gone. And something that I was expected to take 20 minutes was gone in 2 minutes. The kids laughing at me and wanting to play with the balloons. Completely fell apart. Conversely, there are moments where I turn up, I turned up once with just hula hoops and footballs. And I mean, I've got a series of go-to activities that I go to and sometimes use. And I just remember I'd watched an episode of Taskmaster the night before. And I was just like, hang on, we could have some fun with here. So on the fly, I came up with a bunch of tasks that involved dribbling, working together as a team, talking to each other. And it was all less about the football and more about them all coming together and communicating. And I was just coming up with that on the fly, right? Adapt it. Just take what you need that will work with the group that you've got. Don't beat yourself up if it doesn't work. Number 7, you will, if you're like me, think you're rubbish. You'll just think you're terrible at it, even if you're the best footballer in the world. The demands on an SEN pan disability football coach are you're not just dealing with the football side of it. You're sometimes dealing with additional needs that require you to keep an eye on things. And it can be difficult. I know it's the same to a degree in mainstream as well. We're all different personalities. Once you start throwing molecules together, you've got no idea how they're going to bash in different directions. So all of that, comes into play. But the number of times I've sat, certainly in the first year and a half of doing it, I thought I was terrible at it. It wasn't helped where one coach who was working at a different team at the club I'm at, long gone, this coach, went up to one of my players and said, you should be in a proper team, not this. And I was so nervous and insecure. I didn't push back. Now I would push back and a half. It's just like, our team is proper. Just because they don't fit your design of what proper is, what we're doing is proper. The bit that turned it for me was an FA qualified coach came up and just happened to be watching and came along with one of their kids who's now part of ECA and told me I wasn't rubbish. And it was that. It's just like, oh, okay, you actually know what you're talking about and you don't think I'm terrible. And so, it's just like the inner insecurity and imposter syndrome is rife. The chances of you actually being rubbish are really not high. The fact that you're present, putting on football and engaging kids who might not have 2 hours of engagement like this at any other point throughout the week, I'd be surprised if you were rubbish, but it doesn't stop you feeling rubbish. And it's just important, I think, to admit, I didn't want this to be a video all about all the good stuff. It leads me on to number 8. Football is the Trojan horse. and this ties into turning up. We run 2 hours every Sunday morning. I reckon the first half hour is fairly relaxed. It's kids talking to each other. Then we get heavily into a lot more of the football. If we've got league matches, it would be very different. You don't know what every parent, what every carer, what every child has been through in that week. They might have not had an interaction with another child. They might have had the best week in the world. They might have struggled. They might have had a terrible medical appointment. Even coaches, you might be dealing with real trouble at work. You might have family problems. You might have illnesses and stuff like that. Football is the Trojan horse. This 2 hours that we have on a Sunday morning where you're there to play football, but also you're learning to, certainly the kids, they're learning to engage with other kids, not always positively. We're not miracle workers and not everyone gets on, but you have this space that I know that some of the kids that we've got really look forward to. It's one of the highlights of their week. I remember as a 10-year-old doing football training. I was terrible at football. I can still tell you the name of the coach who taught us. It's just like, I don't remember absolutely every teacher I had. I remember the person who volunteered and just played and got us playing football because I used to really love it. I used to really look forward to it. I knew I wasn't very good, but it was important to me. And I think it's the same. It's just like, it's a lift away from everything else that for a couple of hours you can put real life to the side, inverted commas. It is real life really, and just enjoy it. Number 9 is a really tricky one that I've wrestled with: inclusion versus winning. Going to that coach, the coach session I went to donkeys ago, where all the session looked perfect and stuff like that. One of the things that stuck with me is the coach there said from the start, you have to decide with your team, are you in it to win trophies or are you in it to give kids a game of football and let everyone? And he explained, if you make that choice and you set your team up in different ways. If you're in it purely to win trophies, certain players who don't have quite as much ability will be on the bench all the time, and you'll know how to set your team up for the maximum. If it's a case of you're doing it for inclusion to get everyone to have a go, then you know people have to try different positions. Everyone comes in, you're not going to win as much. This is something to really wrestle with because I am right down the inclusion line. The reason I do this is so kids can play football. Win, lose, draw, as long as they're not hammered off the park, which used to happen, long story. Win, lose, draw, I want them to have a safe space to play football. The flip side of that is half the kids really want to win. So I don't think these things are necessarily mutually exclusive. But if I have to pick a team, even if it's like in a semi-final, this happened as well, I am going to try and give as many players as many touches of the ball as possible. That's what I'm in it for. I am personally in it so that kids can play and enjoy football. If they win, it's a real bonus and a real treat. We now run several teams, and I'm always really conscious if one team wins, there's another team that hasn't, and both of them have to walk away from this having had a terrific time. And it's really difficult. It's really difficult even selecting your team because I don't want any kid working with us to feel like the kid picked last at PE. Conversely, I want to set teams so like they get as many touches of the ball. And it's really hard, and it changes at different levels, age bandings, and it changes day to day, really. But there is a fundamental decision at heart, and I'm glad I came to this decision early and I was asked about it early. Are you in it for kids playing football and inclusion, or do you want to win stuff? The correct answer is both, I think. I mean, there's no way around that. It's just like when you see like some kids you've worked with. Honestly, I've sat and watched Birmingham City win a cup final with an 89th minute winner. And boy, did I go nuts. I was as tense watching one of my teams in a cup final, where there's like 20 people watching, but I knew what it meant to them. And win, lose, or draw, I knew what it meant to them. The fact that they got there, I was really proud of them. But also, I'm just as proud as the young kid who wouldn't step on a football pitch, took them 3 months to take part. They weren't taking part in a cup final, but they had crossed so many hurdles just to be part of the team and be talking to people. So, winning, I think, is measured in lots of different ways. You can have medals, you can have trophies, and I get they're important. I'm not blind to that at all. But also, we had one player who, a long, long time ago, who for their first 6 months or so, they'd just sit and just play with daisies and grass and stuff like that, wouldn't get involved. One of the big victories for me was at the end of the season, they lined up in a league match. I think the league match was just like a 1-1. I don't think it was even a particularly special league match. But what a hurdle to jump. Now that is the money can't buy moment where you just think, yeah. And the credit goes to all the other coaches as well. But all fundamentally we'd done is we turned up, we provided a safe space, and we'd let them build in their own time. I mean, there was no magic elixir there. We turned up. We turned up. Rule 10, number 10. I'm just rounding all this off. Rules 1 to 9, if they don't work for you, rip them all up. You might have to change everything tomorrow. You might have a set way of doing it. And then in comes a new player, you've got to change everything. I remember very, very early on, we had a non-verbal player start. Just out the blue, actually. They registered a day or two before, came along. I had no idea how to work with them. And I asked the questions and stuff like that, but they came along, gave them a football, and just started from there. But straight away, I had to change all that great big long list that I'd done there. It's just like you're working, I don't know, anything can change tomorrow. And your way of working last week might not work at all the week after. My fundamental, and I'll do more of these if there's interest, and if people have questions or comments about stuff like this, please put them below, and I will come back to it if you want. If not, let's just all move on. Fundamental pan disability youth football coaching: turn up, treat the kids right. No shouting, screaming, make it as fun as possible. Turn up. Be there when you say you're going to be there. And for those of you out there on Sunday, Saturday mornings, to the parents, the carers, the players, the coaches, the managers, the club administrators, people putting in hour after hour for no financial reward at all, but just like for the fun of it. Absolute solidarity, and keep turning up.